Hello and welcome once again to the Regista Football Podcast. I believe this is episode 10, which is quite an important episode here. I'm always, as always, joined here by my friend Ben. How are you doing, man?
I'm great, Jack. Enjoying this chilly Thursday evening in San Diego.
I mean, by San Diego standards, it's a bit chilly for sure. We are here in Bankers Hill, which is kind of like an area somewhat close to where we both live. We've been to North Park Beer Company before, but we're in an alternative location. I believe this is your first time here, Ben. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I haven't been to this North Park. You know what? I like Bankers here. I think it's a pretty cool place. I was surprised about like the overall vibe of this one versus the other one.
It's different, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very different. It's very much
Professionals.
Yeah, like working professionals. While North Park is a bit more working class, we'll call it.
I like that distinction.
This is the cricket version. We usually go to the football version.
I don't mind a bit of cricket myself, so we'll deal with that. Order of operations then. So we have a relatively packed show today. Liverpool did sign someone in the winter transfer window, but that player won't be coming in until later in the summer. Well, early in the summer. That's Jérémy Jacquet from Ligue 1. We're going to go over that, kind of everything that's involved in that transfer. And then we're going to go over some Premier League previews. We have some big games this weekend. We've got Arsenal versus Sunderland. We've got Spurs versus Manchester United. And we've got Liverpool versus Man City. The Liverpool-Man City game could end up deciding the title, so it's quite an important game. And then Spurs versus Man United. We're going to be doing something a little bit different on that one, so I hope you guys enjoy that one. Let's get into the start then. So firstly, I'll ask you, Ben, have you seen anything from Jérémy Jacquet?
I have not seen anything other than your notes on Jérémy Jacquet. I know that he is from Ligue 1. He plays for France, I'm assuming.
He does.
And he got signed by Liverpool. And if they signed for Liverpool, he should be a pretty good footballer.
Good thing I have most of the information you're going to need.
All right.
So he's 20 years old. He plays for Rennes in the center of a back three. As I did say, he will join in the summer. It's not a winter transfer, unfortunately, because we need a fucking center back. That's the first fuck of the episode. I would say, like, the fact that he plays in the center of a back three at 20 shows, like, a degree of maturity for his age. He was playing on the right side last season, and they moved him on the inside because of a few traits he has, which we'll get into in a minute. Not small change, though, for a 20-year-old. 55 mil plus add-ons. It's quite a lot of money for a 20-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
I think what would be like an equivalent signing of that age for a centre-back? I don't think we've seen many of that like ilk, have we? 20-year-olds?
No, not for a 20-year-old.
It's pretty unique. Quite a lot of money, as I said. I think actually Vardiol is kind of similar, but I think Vardiol was arguably a bit more promising at the time.
Yeah.
Played at probably a higher level, like he's played in some Champions League games at that point, Vardiol. What I would say, like how I would describe him, I would call him like a extremely like proactive defender. He steps up and almost like hunts the ball, has very good anticipation, very mobile, an aggressive ball winner. I'll give you some like standout stats of his. He has a 75% aerial duel win rate. For reference, Virgil van Dijk is 82%, and that puts Jérémy Jacquet in the 96th percentile, which is obviously very good. He's 79th percentile for forward possessions won, so anytime the ball is actively played into his half, he's very good at intercepting the ball. And then on the flip side of that, he's 95th percentile for interceptions per 90, which is huge for a central centre-back. It means he's extremely aggressive. He's 85th percentile for overall possessions won. So again, almost adding to that kind of like very aggressive trait he has. He's also 87th percentile for accurate long balls. From what I've seen from him, in terms of like a technical perspective, I watched some scouting video of him playing long balls. He doesn't look quite as, what's the term, elegant as someone like Virgil van Dijk.
Okay.
I think his ball striking is good, but I find the long passes he does make are accurate, but they're a bit loopy. They have like a loopier trajectory. Van Dijk, it looks like he hardly pays any effort at all to hit the ball like 40 yards, and it almost lands exactly where he wants to every time.
Yeah.
I'd say we're in a very unique situation with Jacquet because he's only 20, lots of room for improvement. What I am curious about, Ben, is if Liverpool end up doing something similar to what Arsenal did with William Saliba. They bought him, but he stayed in France and then they loaned him out again just to get some more experience. I'd say Ligue 1 as a league is it's relatively similar to the Premier League. It's not quite as intense, but the game flows in a very similar way. It's full of transitions. It's full of direct attacking players. I'd be kind of curious to see if that happens.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see if that is a way they'd move forward. I don't imagine they would. It seems like they kind of need a center back, and with his profile, if they trust him to play, he could learn as he goes.
Yeah.
He does have a full summer potentially to go through the paces before he starts for the season,
and that's important.
So I'd be interested to see if they do end up doing that. I would say that's a pretty heavy investment for a loan player.
Yeah, it is. I think it's a pretty heavy investment for a 20-year-old anyway.
Yeah.
Mind you, like 60 is the new 30 to a degree. Like any player that's remotely promising and has room for growth doesn't really go for 30 million anymore, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm really excited about that one. I think he's going to be quite good. I'm curious to see how he fits into the team, how we play with him. Do we switch to a back three potentially? Do we decide to kind of essentially give him a trial by fire by playing him in a back two? I'd like to see him start with Virgil van Dijk at times next season, just get his feet wet, but no, really excited about that one. I guess let's get into the game previews. Let's start with, I'd say, the kind of more straightforward game of the weekend. Arsenal play Sunderland at the Emirates, Saturday at 3 p.m. local time and 7 a.m. our time, so Pacific Standard Time. Early one, Ben. How you feeling about it?
Yeah, I think this game I was looking forward to for one main reason, and that was seeing Granit Xhaka back.
Yeah.
At the Emirates, playing for a Premier League side.
Your favorite non-Arsenal player.
My favorite non-Arsenal player. But yeah, I was really looking for that. It looks like Granit is most likely going to be sidelined with an injury. I'm sure he's still going to be there in the stands. I know that the moment that they maybe not the moment, but like maybe at the end of the game when they put the camera on him, the stadium's going to sing his song.
Yeah.
He really has had a redemption story. It'll be good to see him. But I kind of jumped ahead on injuries there. I think I'm feeling okay about this game. I like the win, but let's look at where Sunderland are right now.
I think that would give us good perspective.
Yeah.
But mind you, outside of just general form and everything, they've been a surprise. They made some really astute signings in the summer.
Yeah.
To kind of not just bolster their squad, but to kind of make their squad more Premier League quality.
Yeah.
And they've been a really big surprise for me. They gave us a good game at Anfield. They play a very specific style. It's super intense, defensively minded, but on the counter, man, they are blistering.
Yeah, it reminds me of really early 2000s football, right? It's like they left football in the Premier League and then came back to play the same kind of football.
Yeah.
And it's fun to watch. It's very nostalgic, I would say.
Yeah, it is kind of like an older style of football, isn't it?
Yeah. It's not as modern, but it still works. It is a championship side making championship football work in the Premier League.
It's with a championship side playing that style of football with Premier League quality players.
Yeah,
it's fun. It's fun to watch. They're blistering on a counterattack.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the current situation. How well are they doing? What injuries do they have coming into this game?
Yeah. Their last 5, they've had 2 wins, 2 losses, and a draw. But they're 8th on the table. So overall, just been doing really, really well. If you look at that, they've only had 2 wins away from home. That was against Forest and Chelsea.
Yeah, they've really relied on home form.
Exactly. They've been undefeated at home. So that's quite great. I was looking at their points and where they were after 24 games now versus their history.
They're 3 points off us, man.
Yeah, so they're 3 points off of you.
Fuck's sake.
This is their best season in the Premier League since 2011.
That's crazy.
And right now they are -1 point to where they were that year in game week 25. So they're kind of back in this really great form, but they are missing some people. Actually, maybe some key people. Granit, as I mentioned, is out, ankle injury, missed most recent matches. And then Isidore, who's actually one of their really great strikers who was performing really, really well at the beginning of the season. He's been out for a little while. Bradbury stepped up, but he's been out. Arthur Masuaku, I'm so sorry.
Masuaku,
thank you, is out for an ankle injury, still sidelined. And then Jocelyn
Tabai.
it has another fitness issue with another ankle issue. But, I don't think that that's going to be something that they will necessarily be missing. I think they will be missing Granite, but in the last couple of weeks since they haven't had him, they've still performed okay.
Yeah. I think their style kind of lends to that, though.
Yeah.
Speaking of their style, talk to me about it.
Yeah. So under Libri, they are really not a ball-dominant footballing side. They are more compact. They're efficient. They prefer structure. They play in a low or medium block and prioritize organization over possession.
Dan
overall.
fucking Ballard, man.
Yeah, exactly. If you look at it, they have on average in the Premier League this season, they've had 43.8% possession. That's 17th in the league.
That's low, yeah.
It's low. So it's really not about possession style football. As you mentioned, they are really more about that build-up and the counterattack. But their counterattack and their build-up is not about a lot of passes either. They are looking to get out of danger really quickly, reset and use the long balls, and clear in space. They're actually, I think, third highest in clearances, which also probably
Makes
long
a bunch
balls.
of sense.
Seventh highest in through balls. On through passes in the league as well.
To me, those statistics just scream out Granit Xhaka, how they... Because I remember when we played them at Anfield, they, anytime Granit Xhaka would get the ball, he'd almost, position himself like a bit of a quarterback.
Yeah.
Spraying the ball across the pitch.
Yeah.
He has, obviously, really good passing range, and they aren't going to miss him for this. But I think they've managed to find ways to get around it.
Yeah, I think that they do rely heavily on those balls coming in, and I will say, they have been kind of lucky. They've been kind of lucky.
Definitely.
We talked earlier in this year about XG differential. I want to get into that a little bit. So they actually have some of the lower XG in the league.
Definitely, yeah.
But they've been really efficient in front of goal. So they've had 70. Wow. 27 goals. Guys, this is my first beer. They've had 27 goals from 22.03 XG. That's a 4.97 difference. Yeah, they're fifth in the league for XG over performance.
And for what it's worth, one of those goals that had the massive overperformance is that fucking deflection goal at Anfield, where it's 0.04.
Yeah.
And it goes in. They've been lucky, but they've made their own luck to a degree.
Yeah. Exactly. When they go forward, they go forward in numbers. They look to get bodies behind the ball.
Yeah.
And they play it quickly. I feel like they do have intelligent transition. It's not kind of it's planned. They have definite target men who they're looking for when they're going.
Robbie's huge. Isidore huge.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Exactly. So as I mentioned, is it very possession heavy? They are high on through passes, and they kind of manage their risk overall. And they are really they have organization in order to mitigate any of those losses.
They emphasize the defensive side of the game. Ultimately, I think part of that is obviously their style.
Yeah.
But they have to, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
They don't have a bunch of skilled creative players. They don't have almost like a talismanic striker either. They play very physically. Mm-hmm. They play long most of the time.
I don't even think they have a lot of pace.
No, they don't.
I mean, they have a couple of pacey players, but it's not like they have someone just blitzing down the wing.
Yeah. It's kind of it is get it to a target man.
Yeah.
And have that target man kind of bring it down and bring people into play.
Mm-hmm.
But it is genuinely long balls into box. Dan Ballard has been a bit of a handful in that regard as well.
He has.
Yeah, it's going to be really an interesting game.
Yeah.
Going into the out of possession style,
Sure.
How would you describe their setup defensively?
They're very disciplined. They're kind of tough to break down, but they kind of have to be, with the kind of sides that they're facing. They do spend a lot more time in the low block than any other Premier League team, than most other Premier Leagues, I should say. They're really focusing on protecting those central zones. They're at a 13.8 PPDA, that's passes per defensive action, which is 18th in the league. Only Burnley and West Ham have a higher PPDA.
That makes perfect sense.
When they're going through their defensive actions, they are really heavy on tackles and blocks and are among the highest in the league among tackles and blocks. They relentlessly want to cut off the danger and limit the clear chances afforded to their opposition. And you can see this in really the goals that they've conceded and the XG that they've faced. So they've conceded 28 It's 26 goals from 33.47 xGA.
God, that's a huge overperformance.
7.47.
That's crazy. If you add the differential together, that has to be the highest in the league.
I haven't. It has to be.
Yeah.
I want to look into that. Yeah,
That's
definitely.
mad.
Yeah, that's a really huge differential. So like their overall goal differential is off by 11, like very
Mad.
12, very much overperforming that. That they're third in the league for that. And they've conceded 0.10 xG per shot. Second in the league. First is Arsenal. So yeah, only 64.99% shots have been faced in their own box, which is third in the league.
That's really good.
It's crazy. Yeah, they're forcing people to take shots outside of the box.
Yeah.
And when they're pressing, it really tends to be more of like a 4-man press. It's not an all-out press.
No,
they're not trying to recover
like
the ball.
Predicated on pressing triggers, like the type of pressing triggers you would think of, like bad touches, like misplaced passes.
Smart pressing triggers so that they don't get out of shape.
Yeah, exactly.
Is ultimately what it is. So low block, disciplined first line of defense, really smart aerials, and block coverages overall.
I'm actually really interested to see how I'd say like a lot of Arsenal's offensive game is the wingers kind of cutting in on their strong foot and putting like front post and back post balls.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to see how Sunderland deal with that. Because I think they've been one of the better teams at dealing with like aerial assaults throughout the season. So I think that's a fun matchup to a degree.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see exactly how they're going to deal with that, and also what those kind of like little driven balls to the byline, runs in behind are going to look like as well. But I really think that if Sunderland are going to win this game or draw this game, they cannot concede an early goal to Arsenal.
Cannot concede an early goal.
Because if Arsenal get an early goal, Arsenal will probably get a second and then lock it up.
Agreed.
So, yeah, they need that defensive discipline, need to keep a tight shape, especially between lines, so that Arsenal cannot take advantage of that. To score goals, they need to have really quick counters and transitions.
Definitely.
They need to be able to launch counters from deep and really catch off the high line that Arsenal is going to press on them.
Yeah.
And they've been the most dangerous in these transitions anyways.
They have.
They need to exploit the gaps that Arsenal sometimes leaves. Anytime that they may leave Saliba by himself or Gabriel by himself, really. Or, one of the less experienced fullbacks in case of anything. Like they definitely need to do that. I think they need to be able to score on set pieces overall, and then limit those high quality chances overall.
Ultimately, keep the ball out, defend their box well. I think overall, limiting those higher quality chances is really the biggest thing here. Like you said, when you alluded to, they cannot concede early. I think if they concede early, it's like a foregone conclusion for me, because I don't see Arsenal letting them come on to them at all. And I don't know if they have the ability to play enough to be able to create chances when Arsenal are in that style of game state. So I think they have to keep it tight. I think it would be ideal for them if they could make it like a 30-minute game.
Yeah, ideally. Just make it happen very, very quickly. Yeah, should we go into Arsenal?
Yeah.
Talk a little about them. A brief overcap on situation. Arsenal have only lost one match to Sunderland in the Premier League era, and that was in an FA Cup match. Obviously, Sunderland has been in the Premier League for a few years, but they are currently 4-1 in all matches, but they are 2-1-2 in the Premier League. We know about that loss against United, and then the 2 draws against
Forest, Liverpool.
They have done pretty decently against teams who've been newly promoted or are a little lower on the table. Of course, Sunderland isn't that team right now. But I think Arsenal really need to win this game to reaffirm their dominance. And really, if anything happens in that Liverpool City game, if Villa somehow drops points again this week, create that separation and that gap, it's a really big game. It's a really big home game after this kind of few weeks of, I don't know, not great performance in the Premier League.
I really think the huge advantage Arsenal have here is they get to play at home before Liverpool and City.
Mm-hmm.
They get to put that point total on the board and really put pressure on City. And I think this is almost the ideal game for it. Like you said, they've had a pretty bad record away from home, Sunderland. for me, this is leading to an Arsenal victory, but we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the thing that could lead to their victory is just Arsenal's attack is actually looking okay.
Yeah.
Havertz has come back and has 3 GA since he's been back in the team across all competitions. Gyökeres is at 4 GA in the last 5 games.
It's not bad.
So, maybe people are actually going to score some goals in this game.
Do you think Odegaard starts in this game?
Odegaard did not start against Chelsea, or actually wasn't even on the team sheet because of an injury, and he
oh shit.
Yeah, so he has been injured. So I would expect him to start if he's feeling well, but I don't think he does start. I think Arteta probably does something similar to last week and brings in Eze.
Havertz.
Yeah, possibly bring in Havertz, give him the minutes. Bukayo Saka was injured last week during the warm-up and didn't start against Chelsea. Wasn't on the team sheet against Chelsea, but I think they were just resting him. They say that Bukayo's most likely going to be back. And then actually Mikel Merino has a longer-term injury right now. He's actually going to be back much later in the season. So, yeah, I don't think we're going to have a weak Arsenal team, but not quite the team that, you'd expect to see.
Yeah, not like the bona fide starters.
Yeah, exactly. But I think there's still ways for Arsenal to win this game. Kind of just the opposite of Sunderland, right? You got to score early. Yeah. You have to really control that tempo early on in the game and don't let Sunderland settle into that low block. Take advantage of being home and pressing quickly, play the ball quickly, have a really fast tempo, and just don't let them even realize what's happening before you do it.
Yeah.
I think being able to exploit those wide spaces, since Sunderland is very compact in the middle, like I expect if Madueke starts, he'll be exploited on the right side, making runs in behind as quickly as he can. Same with Martinelli. I'd really like to see the kind of game that we played against Bournemouth. I don't think we're going to have that same kind of game because we're not going to have that same kind of pressing, but that'd be really fun to kind of see if we can kind of somehow create that early on. And I think talking about the goals conceded to the XGA, Arsenal has to be clinical in their finishing.
Yeah, they're not going to get many big chances, I don't think. Mainly because of, like you said, how compact they play.
Yeah.
I think this is a different test for Arsenal than some of the games they've had in the last few weeks, because ultimately most of the football is going to be in front of Sunderland.
Yeah.
Sunderland are going to park the bus ultimately, be very deep in their box.
Yeah.
It's about trying to find those openings where you can get them. I would like to see the players start that are good in tight spaces in this game. I think it's almost perfect.
Gabriel Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'll be good to see those players come in and just kind of dominate the ball, get in between players, and put it in the back of the net. And I think the big thing is we talked about Sunderland's ability to transition and counter. Arsenal need to protect against that. Arsenal have given up 2 goals this season on those kind of quick counters.
Haaland was one of them.
Haaland was one of them. So we just need to make sure that Arsenal and their fullbacks and their pivots are very disciplined, and they don't give up anything in those risky areas of the pitch.
Prediction, Ben?
I'm feeling hopeful. I'm going to say a 2-0 to Arsenal.
Really? 2-0?
I'm going to say 2-0.
I'm going to say 4-0.
Okay.
I think you fucking bat it. Honestly, I do. I don't see them being able...
second fuck, right?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe I'm the culprit here. So yeah, kind of emphatic wins, kind of less so emphatic from Ben's side. I just don't see a situation where they can really utilize the strengths that they have to genuinely trouble Arsenal. I don't think Arsenal are going to be, what's the term, lackluster defensively or lacking in focus defensively. You guys don't really deal with that type of thing. I think they're going to try and put balls in behind, and I think you guys can sweep them up and deal with it properly, recycle possession and keep it moving.
Yeah.
Let's get into the other game now. So we're going to talk about Liverpool versus Manchester City. Really big game at Anfield, Sunday at 4:30 p.m. GMT. For us, that's 8:30 a.m. So I'd say that's late enough to drink a few beers, Ben.
It's late enough.
Let's talk a bit about the current Man City situation. So they've won 1 loss, and 3 draws in the last 5 Premier League games. Funnily enough, the same as Liverpool. They're coming off the back of a difficult second half against Spurs, where they gave up a 2-goal lead to eventually draw the game with a ridiculous scorpion kick goal from Dominic Solanke. I would say
we watched live.
We did, yeah. If you guys haven't heard that last episode, you basically get a live reaction of that goal, and it was a really fun time. So highly recommended. I would say they did play midweek against Newcastle in the League Cup, so fatigue could be a potential thing here. They had a relatively straightforward game, but playing Newcastle anyway is kind of more of an intense affair, so I think that is something. Man City have been plagued by injuries, like really plagued by injuries. Doku is out. I put in brackets there, third fuck of the episode, thank fuck. He is terrifying. Like, he terrifies me. So he should be back later this month, though. John Stones is still out, should be back in the next couple of weeks. Mateo Kovacic is still injured. Similar timeline to Stones. Ryan Cherky came off injured against Tottenham. I don't know if he played yesterday. I think he did,
yeah.
So I think he's fit. Vardiol is obviously dealing with a long-term injury, not back anytime soon. And Diaz is also injured, so should be back later this month. Probably see a centre-back pairing of Gahey and Kusanov again.
Yeah.
And kind of excited about that. But
Yeah.
we're going in a minute. We've not actually gone into how City play. City have changed their style a little bit. Where I would say they were had a huge emphasis on control under Pep early on in his tenure, they've kind of changed. And you could see the highlight of that in the change from Edison to Donnarumma. They care a lot less about ball distribution from the back, although it's still a vital part of how they play.
Yeah.
There's less emphasis on that now. Their structure, they either attack in a 3-4-2-1 or more importantly, more specifically, a 3-2-5 build-up shape. It's actually quite different, though, to how a lot of 3-2-5 build-up shapes work. The only way I can describe it, guys, is Rodri drops into centre-back, picks up the ball, distributes the ball. He can rotate with Bernardo Silva, who also does that as well. So imagine, on that same axis in the centre of the defence, there's another player directly in front of them constantly playing for rotations. And then imagine a backwards arrow pointing towards that centre-back, almost creating a 5.
Yeah. I'm almost seeing a Y with 2 lines.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the way I would put it. It's quite unique because essentially their aim is to build consistently from the back. They will go long at times, like I said, to hit Haaland. They do have the second highest possession in average behind only Liverpool, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
So this could be a game of territory and a game of control. I'll get into it. I don't think Liverpool typically play that way against City, but we'll talk about that in a bit. They like a lot of central midfield dominance, hence the type of shape that they do have. The fullbacks will tuck in and often create overloads. Their fullbacks, it's important to remember, are both central midfielders by trade.
Yeah.
O'Reilly and Núñez. So they will often tuck in and help with facilitate build-up. What else do we have to talk about? The overall aim really is to find players in between the lines and half spaces. This has been Pep's MO the whole of his career. Wants to play with that 5, stagnating out in all 5 lanes of the back line, essentially to the point where they create central rotations, try and find players in half spaces. Watching Haaland for this was actually quite interesting because I'd say he's often one of the wider players in the shape. If you imagine the top of the kind of backwards arrow, he kind of hangs around on the edge of zone 14 and makes inside runs kind of going between centre-backs.
Yeah.
It's really interesting and it works really well, especially when you're thinking about if the opposite player on the other flank gets into one of those half spaces, it's easy to typically use one of those third-man runs to put Haaland through, and I've seen quite a few goals like that from them this year.
Yeah, I've also noticed he will come back much deeper.
Yes.
Because you then forget about Haaland and he has that pace and can then turn on that pace. He'll just run through the middle, and then before you know it, the ball's through and he's on top.
That's actually a really good point. I found this season he's definitely coming deeper to help facilitate build-up a bit more.
Yeah.
And the way I look at that is because they're actively playing quicker into him.
Yeah.
So there's much more space around him to be able to play. Really unlike City in the past, honestly.
Yeah.
They're playing a much more open, expansive game. They still have a big emphasis on control and dominating possession, but they've shown kind of more strings to their bow to a degree.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's talk some interesting stats. They have 43.6 XG in total. They've scored 49, which is a slight of a performance. They do have the highest number of big chances created through open play in the league, and their XG per shot is 0.13.
Jesus.
This puts them in the top 3. They're actually joint second with Chelsea. The highest, believe it or not, Ben, is Brentford. But they have a way, way fewer shots. City has almost 2 times the amount of total shots than Brentford. Yeah. So it's they don't only have the quality, they have the quantity of chances. for me, at the very least, they rank. They rank first in the league for touches in the opposition box, showing that level of dominance they have in possession. They are without their kind of leading chance creator. Doku has created 40, which is nuts.
What's even crazier about that is Doku's been injured for 4 weeks now, and he also had an injury.
He's had an injury earlier in the
season.
So, like, he is a fucking menace.
Yeah.
Again, thank fuck. And then Phil Foden is their second of 22 big chances created, not necessarily big chances created. Cherki is their assist leader with 7 assists so far this season. Really dangerous in attack. We know what to expect from City really offensively. They're one of the best teams not only in the league but in Europe offensively, and consistently have been throughout the whole of the time Pep has been there. So Liverpool are going to have to deal with that correctly. Let's talk a bit about their kind of out of possession style here. I guess their aim is to press high out of possession when teams are in like build-up structure, but unlike like the Newcastles or Liverpools or Arsenals, they don't press high up, and that's indicated by their PPDA, which is 13. That kind of puts them like 11th in the league, so kind of around mid-table in the league. For me, that kind of demonstrates that they rely on structure but only press really when they have to, but their press is quite effective. I think they're 4th in the league with kind of high regains, like high pressure regains. So they choose to do it selectively, but they are effective at it when they do actually do it. Let's talk about some stats defensively for Man City. So they average 1 goal conceded per match. They have conceded 27.1 XG in total, only conceded 23, which shows a bit of fortune, but also could be good last-ditch saving. Donnarumma is known as a really good shot stopper.
Yeah.
Big fact, and this is going to go on to a big thing for Liverpool for me. They've conceded 18 goals in the second half of the last 10 games. That is crazy statistic.
That is pretty wild, yeah.
They're almost averaging 2 goals conceded in second halves in the last 10 games.
Yeah.
And we'll get into Liverpool. So, Liverpool situation, similar record, 1 loss, 1 win, 3 draws in the last 5. We're coming off, arguably, like as I touched on in the last episode, probably our best week of the season so far. We've scored 10 goals, conceded 1 in the last 2 games.
Yeah.
I would say like this is a pivotal game for Liverpool. This is a really important game for Liverpool getting into top 4. United have a bit of a straightforward fixture, but Chelsea have a really straightforward fixture. They're playing Wolves at home, so Liverpool kind of need to win from this, honestly. We did face them earlier this year, and they beat us 3-0. I would say that was during we just beat Villa and Real Madrid and then lost 3-0 at the Etihad. That was a weird game. That was the game that we got that obviously fine goal disallowed from Virgil van Dijk. Liverpool injuries, kind of nothing has changed really in that regard since I last mentioned this. Frimpong and Bradley still injured at right back. For whatever reason, the club chose not to find a replacement in January. We were linked to Gertruida. Sunderland weren't able to get a replacement in, so they decided to not terminate the loan and send him back to Leipzig. So we are that kind of recognized right back at the moment.
Yeah.
I would say Gomez is set to practice on Saturday, so he could be in contention for this game. But my personal opinion is I think Szoboszlai starts at right back here.
Yeah, I imagine he's going to start at right back. He usually starts at right back against some of the
big games.
Higher quality teams.
See, I would love to see how he deals with Doku, man. Like, I really would. I don't know who plays the left side now. It'd be Semenyo. And probably Cherki on the right.
Yeah.
That's still really tough to deal with.
Yeah.
Keys to victory for Liverpool, from my perspective. Keep it tight. Don't give City too much space, especially on the counter-attack. They are devastating on the counter-attack. Occupy half spaces. I think it's really important that they cut off those passing lanes. I did touch on that. This is their primary source of chance creation. Is finding rotations in the half space, finding people to kind of drop into those half spaces and use third-man runs to create space to passes directly in the box. Try and keep that to like a minimum. Ultimately, keep it tight in the first half, specifically to bring pain in the second half. And the reason I say that is because they do have that noticeable drop-off in second halves of games.
Yeah.
And I think if Liverpool really bring the intensity in the second half, they could be in some trouble.
What do you think is causing that drop-off in the second half?
I think it could be energy.
Okay.
If you think about it, like they have a really small squad. I know it sounds silly. They've been dealing with a lot of injuries.
I mean, Pep's been talking about how small his squad is. So,
did you see that quote on a unrelated note? Did you see he said, "We are 7th in the net spend table. We should be 1st."
Yeah.
I love the type of tongue-in-cheek shit
Loved
he does
it.
sometimes. It's really, really good. Yeah. they should have probably. I think they've. On an unrelated note, I think they probably should have bolstered their squad when they had the chance throughout the past few summers.
Yeah.
Really, only really this summer have they really gone out and spent a bunch of money. A couple summers before, they haven't really done that.
Mm-hmm.
They've signed like marquee players, but haven't really addressed squad needs, like transitioning from the Centurions team, at least from my perspective. I think they've kind of neglected that to a degree, and I think you're seeing that pay dividends now, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Ultimately, Liverpool need to play through the lines quickly. City are very comfortable when the game is slow. The chaos suits us more. I didn't touch on the City thing, like things for victory. Actually, I don't know if I did that. What I would say, City keys to victory. City need to exploit Liverpool's weaknesses defensively. Fortunately, they're not like a huge set piece team, so we're not really gonna have to deal with that. What they need to do is they need to pull our fullbacks around, make it really uncomfortable in the half spaces when Liverpool attack, counter-attack quickly. We've shown to struggle with that quite a bit. Bring Kanate out of position. I think it's really important. Use those rotations to bring Kanate into those half spaces, make him defend in situations he doesn't want to defend, and I think that will pay dividends for them potentially. But yeah, that's the game really.
Do you think that like earlier in the season when Liverpool let a goal in first, they really struggled to find the mentality to bring the game?
It's a good question.
Do you feel like do you think they're still struggling with that? Do you feel like that mentality is back?
Oh, it's really tough for me to say we're over it, Ben.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it so often this season. I would say in the past few weeks, or definitely once we've been on that like quote unquote unbeaten run, we definitely showed propensity to be able to come back in situations like Leeds. We came back. Bournemouth, we came back. So we have been able to do it. But against a team like City, you really don't know. Like, you know what they want to do once it goes 1-0 up. They want to control possession and essentially kill the game out. Take their chances when they get them. But I hope so. If we do go 1-0 behind, I hope Anfield advantage to a degree. Fans get behind the team and the crowd almost like sinks the ball into the net. Yeah, that's what I hope to see. What do you think? How do you think this game ends?
I want this game to be a good game. I want it to be.
It's going to be a good game.
3-2 for Liverpool.
Man.
I want to see goals. I want it to be a fun game. And I also want it, obviously I want Liverpool to, well, let's be honest here. I want City to lose.
Yeah.
Is what I want.
Understandably. What am I going to go for? I think Liverpool end up winning this game 2-1.
Okay.
I think we score early. They equalize. We end up coming back to win 2-1. I think this is going to be a game where Florian Wirtz once again announces himself. Remember, Man City were heavily linked to Florian Wirtz. They were interested in him for at least a year. So this is like one of the biggest stages he's had in some form. I want to see Florian Wirtz play well. So I'm going to say 2-1 Liverpool. Let's get into our last game now. Like I said, we've kind of planned something a little bit differently here. What we're going to do for games that are kind of outside of Liverpool and Arsenal sphere, teams that we talk about a lot, we're going to go into kind of pretty, I'd say, comprehensive detail of how one or two of those teams play both offensively and defensively. We've chosen the more exciting team to cover this time. We will touch on Spurs briefly after this, like what their current situation is and what we expect from them from this game. But ultimately, we're going to talk about United in some depth. We're going to talk about United from the transition from Amorim, how they play different under Amorim compared to what Carrick is doing.
And I just want to say this one thing. I hate United. Jack hates United. This is not us fanboying about United. This is us really doing what we want to do, which is dig into the data and understand what this team's about. This is us, spending some time more focused on educating ourselves about football and looking at the data and educating ourselves about different styles of play and teams.
Ultimately, I'd say the data education part is a big thing reason we started this. So the ability to look into that with teams maybe that aren't our favorite teams is also an opportunity in itself. So we're going to get into that. So I'm going to start with the attacking strategy, kind of go into kind of like underlying numbers for United this season. And then I'm going to go into the changes of setup between Amorim and Carrick, and then how they both approach chance creation and how that differs from one to the other. So United this season, underlying numbers are probably better than you would honestly expect. They currently sit third in XG with 4 43.1. They've scored 44. Shows a slight overperformance. Only Chelsea and City are higher, very, very marginally. I've seen them actually. There was a point where they were on top, and they were on top of the XG charts for quite a few weeks.
Yeah.
United. So it shows they are actively managing to create consistent chances. They ranked second highest in terms of long ball accuracy per match, as well as long balls attempted. So they attempt a lot of long balls, and they're quite good at them. Brentford only have 0.1 more in terms of long ball accuracy. So
you from those throw-ins.
Fucking Coyote, man. The most terrifying thing I've seen all season. From what I can see, this has been somewhat consistent from the transition from Amorim to Carrick. I would say they are doing less of it, but they are still doing it when selected. I think there was an amazing ball from Harry Maguire to Mbeumo when they were against Fulham in their last game. Mbeumo makes like this outside to inside run, and like Harry Maguire just clips it over like really low trajectory. I think Mbeumo could probably do better, but it shows how effective they are there. From goal kicks too, they're also very good at playing long from goal kicks. And they do have the most shots attempted in the league, which is kind of crazy. They also have the highest amount of shots on target, which, yeah, you probably wouldn't. This isn't United of old. They're not the same team. I think Amorim really improved a lot of their attacking output earlier in the season. And we're starting to see that kind of pay back now. They are consistently kind of one of the best performers on set pieces. They've got 12 goals with an XG of 10. I think only Arsenal and Brentford have scored more, which is kind of nuts. We both know who their best player has been. I would argue probably player of the season, at least for me so far. And I have a pure hatred of Man United.
Yeah.
Bruno Fernandes, I think, has been excellent this year. He has an XG of 7.43, underperforming that with 5 goals and 5.91 XA, which is kind of lower than you would expect.
Usually he's the one putting the balls in for the goals, but I think that's largely because the rest of the team isn't scoring the goals.
Yes. There's also the fact that he was playing in a double pivot earlier in the season under Amorim, so he was playing deeper. Like if you remember watching some of the games under Amorim, like you could see like he was essentially playing like a quarterback role. Like dropping deep, trying to drop balls over the top. That's not his game for me.
Yeah.
His game is finding space and then playing incisive balls. And he's doing that now in a more attacking area. He's playing like in his favorite attacking midfield position, under like just behind the striker, which is typically Seshko. Let's talk about the changes in setup between Amorim and Carrick. Amorim's style, I would say, is much more weighted to using possession as a tactic to kind of like bring teams onto him and then expose space in behind, similar to Roberto De Zerbi, which we touched on in the Marseille-focused episode. Amorim kind of had the team playing vertically more consistently. They're still doing it now, but definitely less so. The statistics before, like I showed you there, really highlight the style of play that Amorim had. Like they were essentially trying to suck teams onto them and playing like incisive through balls in behind, and it worked. I would say Carrick's focus is more on United keeping possession, building slowly, more deliberately, and you can definitely see that through kind of like increased possession numbers throughout the games that they've recently had. Let's talk about the shape and like build-up approach, like how both of them differ. We'll touch on Carrick first. Kind of Carrick likes his teams to ultimately build in a 2-3 or 2-4 shape, quite rarely a 3-2, more so 2-3 or 2-4. These utilize kind of like both pivot players and either a single or both fullbacks. So a fullback will tuck in, or a fullback will create the 4 and the 2-4. So the fullbacks are quite important when it comes to build-up. I would say that's probably more risk-averse than what Amorim implemented, and we'll touch on Amorim in just a sec here. I would say the centre-backs do not play the ball, really, unless they're sure the passing lanes are open to be able to play the ball inside the block. Yeah. If not, they'll use the fullbacks to circulate and try and create openings in the block that way.
Yep.
I would say the relational football we saw in the Arsenal game was definitely more related to that Arsenal game. I think the team was kind of playing on vibes a little bit, like surround the ball player to create intricate, tight passing. And I did actually see that in some of his chance creation, which I'll touch on in a bit as well. But I think the relational football is more of a chance creation thing as opposed to like a principle that they use all the time, even in build-up. So I watched some, like quite a bit of Amorim footage for this, not just for Manchester United, but also for Sporting. He has fun football, especially for Sporting. It was so direct. Like, base formation is the 3-4-3, which everyone knows. I haven't heard the end of United fans moaning about the back three. I'd say it makes it kind of simple to build in that 3-2 shape that Amorim favored. Kind of each of the centre backs are involved with build up with the two pivot players. Imagine like an M shape in that regard. Very similar to like most of Europe, quite frankly. Most teams build up in that 3-2 shape, I would say. I'd say the kind of like the aim of this is similar to like 3-2 build-up structures, trying to utilize passing lanes to play balls directly into half spaces to create chances. But I would say, and the big difference between Amorim and Carrick, kind of once that progression is secured, they like to hold like a really aggressive 3-1-6, sometimes 3-2-5. But typically what would happen is one of those pivot players would kind of crash the box late in attacks to try and like get on the end of chances. And you can see that with like Hjulmand and what's the other guy's name? He's a Japanese guy. I forgot his last name, but Hjulmand and his pivot partner at Sporting, you can see that a lot. Like they would crash the box to try and get on the end of cutbacks. And ultimately, like that style of play was quite exciting for me like, to watch. Not that Carrick's isn't. I think Carrick's is slightly different, and we'll get onto how they create chances in a minute.
Yeah, it sounds a lot of like where Carrick is more like positional and overloads on certain players.
Yes.
Amorim is more focused on overloads in certain parts of the pitch.
You've got it, dude. You've actually got it. And we're going to get into that in a minute. So they both approach chance creation quite differently. Carrick, I'd say he likes to encourage clear rotations in the final third to create overloads and half spaces, typically from in and around zone 14. From there, they hope to create space specifically for third-man runs. They really love third-man runs.
Okay.
From the footage that I noticed, like a lot of their chances centrally are created using third-man runs and like really tight passing combinations, which you saw in the Arsenal game. Once they get to the edge of that box, third-man run takes a guy out of the way, and then intricate, quick passing combinations end up creating space for players to try and shoot, either at the edge of the box or slide people in, making those third-man runs. And going back to kind of what I touched on earlier, I'd say part of that approach is somewhat relational. Like a bunch of trying to crowd the ball player in the final third to give him easy passing combinations. And the reason he's doing it in the final third, it's more risk averse. And the way I'd say it's more risk averse is typically the downside to relational play is you have a bunch of people clustering in one part of the pitch, not really understanding or not really taking into account the position that they need to be in. If you do that in the final third, it's much easier to recover versus doing that in your kind of build-up phase, in your build-up third, and losing the ball and getting exploited on a high turnover. Yeah. So that's typically how I like to create chances. Kind of cutbacks near the byline or through balls from those central lanes, creating those third-man runs. Amorim, on the other hand. Amorim is like very structural. The way he likes to attack. I would say because of that 3-1-6 shape, ultimately, the way they like to play is to break down opponents' backline and almost fix them into positions. And the way they do that is essentially creating overloads with that 6 in the backline. They create that 6 in different ways sometimes, but ultimately what they're trying to do is they're trying to make players second guess to open up holes in the backline. I would say the attacks start very narrow and encouraging the two inside attacking players. For United, it was Mbeumo and Cunha to make those third-man runs off of the striker.
Okay.
And you can see that with a bunch of goals Mbeumo has scored this year.
Yeah.
Like, Sesko would pick it up, or like the player furthest forward would pick it up. Mount did it at times too. And then Mbeumo would essentially make a third-man run, bring someone away. Either Cunha, one of the other attacking players, would take someone away and actively make that offensive run to get through on goal. They've scored a bunch of goals like that this year. I would say the structure typically creates like the emphasis is essentially on wing-back creation. Yeah. It's why like under Amorim you saw like a bunch of assists for Pedro Porro, playing very high up, very narrow, but like ultimately aiming to hit like low-driven crosses across the box or like cutbacks within those half-space zones in the box. And that's how they created most of their chances, especially with Sporting. I would say like Carrick is much more of like it's difficult. They're both very modern in their offensive approaches, but I would say Carrick is much more, I'd say it's slower, it's much more intentional. I would say it's slightly more risk averse, but ultimately like both of them are coaching really modern attacking football. Speaking of football and speaking of structures, talk to me about the defensive strategies for them, Ben?
Yeah, going to the defensive strategies, we were talking about this briefly about how defenses kind of line up in a certain way based on whoever they're facing, and it's kind of a template. That's kind of how you play defense, largely. But we can go into some of the details of that a little bit more. I thought it was really interesting going into this and just kind of like when we look at your defenses, I like to look at how the team is playing and the percentage of time they are in a certain game state, whether they are leading, level with the other team, or trailing. And I feel like that really impacts how defenses play.
Before we get into this, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How would you, off the top of your head, what would you think of the defensive structures just by watching the games that you've seen? So, when I think of Amorim defensively, the amount of times, they get massively punished through build-up mistakes.
Yeah.
Because of how high and wide the fullbacks are in that 3-1-6 shape. You see that a lot. I remember them conceding a lot of goals earlier in the season through losing the ball in build-up.
And that's kind of what really broke down United during that period, right? They were trying to play this kind of football where they didn't really have the personnel to play that kind of football, right? And so you have to adapt your defensive shape to the kind of defensive players you have.
I would actually argue if Lisandro Martinez was fit for most of the season, he is, like him or hate him, a very, very good ball-playing centre-back.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if he was fit for a lot of Amorim's tenure, or very least earlier in this season, when you definitely saw an uptick in performance, they would have been way better off playing out from the back.
Yeah.
But they were playing at times with Delict, Maguire, very slow.
It's weird that Lisandro Martinez has been injured almost all of Amorim's entire tenure.
And he's important to them.
Yeah.
I think Delict is a decent ball player, but
he also is injured now. So let's go into some of this the underlying stats. First, shots and shot quality. Really, are they conceding chances or are they just facing good chances? Is the defense leaking chances or are they just getting punished overall, right? So they have faced 36 goals, or they've let in 36 goals. That's sixth most in the league right now. And they've faced an XGA of 30.56. So that differential is a 5.44.
It's kind of unlucky.
Yeah, but that's not the worst in the league. That is seventh most. So really, they are underperforming that XGA.
Yeah.
They're letting in more goals than they're facing. It could be a couple of different things. Keeper quality. It could be just the quality of chances that people are getting. It could be. What are your thoughts on those kinds of stats when you look at that?
It's difficult, isn't it? Because when you look at underperformance when it comes to XGA, I'm looking at things like keeper mistakes. XGA doesn't
Mind you, they don't have Onana anymore.
Fair. XGA doesn't take into account XG on target either.
Yeah.
So I think they could just be facing really good finishes, or they could be dealing with goalkeeper mistakes.
Yeah.
So typically, that's the way I look at it. Either way, it's either under the scope of being somewhat unlucky.
Yeah.
That you're facing good finishes, or kind of, I wouldn't say unlucky because of goalkeeper mistakes, but unfortunate because of goalkeeper mistakes.
Yeah. So when I looked at that, I was like, all right, well, let's look at how good the shots actually are, which is what we were talking about, right? Let's look at the shot location profile overall. And so are the team that they're facing, are they getting really good touches in the box? If not, is it the keeper problem really, or are they just, letting in really poor chances? So overall, they have had 71.48 of the shots that they've faced have been inside the box.
That's slightly higher than Sunderland, for reference.
A little higher. They've conceded 83.3 goals inside the box.
That's typically standard, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's
you're not
the
taking
highest
a lot
type of XG chances.
Yeah, you're not making a lot of shots outside the box generally, except for this year, which we'll get back to later on. And then, of course, they've had 289 shots against, which is 11.25 per 90.
That's quite a lot.
Yeah, people are feeling confident against United, just taking their shots.
I think it's because a lot of that football, like I said, it's really transitional.
Yeah.
So balls are going to come back.
Exactly.
Really interesting.
Yeah, and save percentage is actually 61.4% saves. around those shots. I actually wanted to dig into a couple more data points here, really on post-shot XG versus GA differential, as well as crosses claimed. But unfortunately, we don't have FBrev anymore.
No. Yeah, so like full transparency, guys, like for us to try and get these stats, we have to really fucking hunt for them, because any good stat source costs a lot of money now. Fucking Opta is all I can say.
It's all right. We'll find those stats. Hopefully, not spend too much money to get them in the future. But I have that written down because I'd like to see those as well, as you mentioned, XGA versus the actually shots they faced. And then after that, I kind of went a little further up the pitch. How does that look like before you actually get to those shots? What's going on in the middle of the pitch? What are their duels like? How much physical control do they have? Are they winning their battles, essentially? So they've won 51.5% of their ground duels, which is third in the league. 48.9%, which is 12th in the league. So they are doing more on the ground than they are on the air, which is fine. They have 27 tackles and interceptions per 90.
Yeah.
They have 3 blocks per 90, not super duper odd. That's about average, I would say, overall. 25 clearances per 90, about average. They've had 15 errors leading to shots and 15 shots leading from errors and 3 goals leading from errors.
Do you know how like that ranks in the league?
The 3 goals leading from errors is actually pretty high. 15 shots, not that high at all.
That's crazy.
And then PPDA, we want to know how they're pressing. PPDA is at 11.5. So they're actually not pressing as high, but mind you, it kind of had 4 games or so with a whole new managing style where that pressing may have changed a little bit more.
I would say that probably puts them about 7th or 8th in the table.
Yeah.
Which isn't bad.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of on the that's kind of like on the bottom end of aggressive pressers.
And then just looking at goals conceded from fast breaks, so meaning that they are too high and they're conceding goals because of fast breaks, as you just mentioned. 5, which is probably all during the Amorim era. But yeah, that's kind of what their overall defensive strategy is. Jack, have we talked about PPDA in depth?
I don't think we've explained actively what the stat is.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
Yeah, I will read the actual definition. It's a footballing analytics metric measuring a team's pressing intensity by calculating how many passes an opponent completes in their attacking 60% of the pitch before the defending team makes a defensive action. That is a tackle, interception, foul, or a block. And then a lower PPDA indicates a more intense, high-pressing team. So
Liverpool, Newcastle, Arsenal, Chelsea.
While a higher value indicates a team that allows for more passing freedom.
Burnley, Wolves, West Ham,
Sunderland.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of what PPDA is. We'll be using that often, especially when we're talking about defenses, because it is this not new, but it is definitely a good measure to see how well teams are pressing.
Yeah,
overall.
Exactly. I completely agree.
And then finally, I kind of went into some pieces about set pieces.
Crazy, 35%. That's mad.
35% of their shots faced come from set pieces. That is 1 in 3 shots come from set pieces.
Crazy.
And 33.94% of our XGA is from set pieces overall. So I think that just means you're conceding a lot of set pieces.
Yeah.
Overall,
I think most teams are conceding quite a few set pieces.
This is true.
Just because of the emphasis that have been put on set pieces this year.
Yeah. And if you look at that performance in those set pieces, they have 10 GA from set pieces and a 10.37 XGA from set pieces. So really a little unlucky, but honestly, like maybe people are just doing really good set pieces against them.
Yeah, I would say the quality of set pieces has increased over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be the only team that has to deal with that.
Yeah. Yeah, if I can summarize this a little bit more, I think what we've seen so far is a lot of physical control and pressing aggression sitting behind some of their struggles, and especially when facing a higher quality attack. In those matches, they don't want to really let the team play their game. And this can be sustainable overall, I'd say. What do you think?
Yeah, I would say. I think ultimately, though, the approach is only sustainable if it keeps working. Football can be pretty random to where, you'll see things crop up in the data that don't quite make sense in terms of eye test. But ultimately, I think it is sustainable.
Yeah. Going into kind of how they kind of set up, generally against possession dominant teams, they usually have more of a mid block, 4-4-2, kind of compact, narrow. As we talked about, wingers are dropping along the midfield. 1-4 stays high for anything that they can get through.
Yeah.
Overall, they have a lower defensive line, reducing the space between center backs and midfields and really compacting that space.
Yep.
Working on a turnover more based on the number of players rather than pressing against teams that concede possession.
Essentially, like trying to create turnovers by taking advantage of the fact the team has tried to play inside the block.
Exactly.
Yeah. Very similar to City.
Yeah. When they are against teams that concede more possession, they do defend a little higher, a little wider.
Yeah.
They are in more of a high block because they want to control that. They want to be able to score. And because usually the other team is in a low block.
Makes sense.
We kind of touched on that. If you are a team that has less possession, you're usually a low block team. If you are a team that has more possession, you're usually a high block team. And
Pretty
if
simple.
you're kind of middling, you're middling, right? Some of the things that I also was looking at, as we mentioned, Lisandro Martinez is back in the team, and he's been pretty significant already.
Their ball playing numbers improved a lot once he's come back in.
When I was looking at the stats and kind of like kind of just like progressions per 90 and things like that, Lisandro Martinez, even though he's only been back for a short time this season, has been at the top. I know that's a per 90, but that also shows his overall trend.
I think per 90 is kind of important to isolate stats.
Yeah.
How much of an effect are they having on game to game?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And like I said, love him or hate him, he's a very good ball playing center back.
Yeah. I actually pulled up. I was curious about when people concede goals.
Can we talk about who I think is their most important defensive player this year?
No, we can't. Yeah, go ahead.
Casemiro.
Absolutely.
It's crazy, man. Like, I've seen stats for Casemiro, like ranking in like some of the highest defensive turnovers, like really, really impressive stats.
Yeah.
For apparently the football's left him, Jamie Carragher. Like, it's funny actually because I saw him mention it last week. He said, "I think the football's very much still there."
I haven't seen that yet. That's great.
It's quite funny.
Yeah.
But
sometimes people don't have good form.
He's been excellent. It's form, but it's also structure. How good is the structure to help me do my job? Like, ultimately, if you're asking me to do too much based on the structure that I'm actively performing in, there are going to be deficiencies here. The structure has to make sense for the style of play I have. And I think Kobbie Mainoo is a really nice... He's a different type of player to Bruno, but he's much more of like a keep it ticking, keep it moving player than Bruno. I think Bruno is way better suited to higher up the pitch.
Yeah, I think Kobbie Mainoo actually has like a really good balancing effect on the team overall.
Absolutely.
It releases Bruno to go a little higher. I was surprised he wasn't getting as many minutes earlier in the season, and now he's getting the minutes. He's performing well. He had that assist against Arsenal. I think he's going to have a good end of the season.
Me too.
Yes, real quick. I was looking at when they're conceding goals per minute. What really surprised me is they've conceded 25% of their goals in the last 10 minutes of the match.
So can I tell you something? That is standard across the league.
Yeah.
If you look at like most of the big teams, most of the time they go into later stages of games conceding goals. I'm not quite sure why that is. In my head, like when I try and compartmentalize it, it comes down to the level of opposition being slightly higher, and teams that need to come after you, like when they do have to come after you, they can.
Yeah. When you have more depth in your team, you're going to give it to your attacking players versus your defensive players unless you are ahead.
It's so interesting.
So, you're still going to you're going to see that. And then also the second highest is between the 41st and 50th minute, which makes me...
That's the FIFA cheese, man.
It is. It makes me feel a lot better watching Arsenal, seeing that. And I'm like, okay, all right, it's not just me. That's why we look at data, because we don't want to look at it as a silo.
Exactly.
We want to be able to see what's happening in the other league and if it actually is happening.
I guess let's talk through the changes between Carrick and Amorim.
Yeah.
Like how they differ from one to another.
Yeah.
If it's changed at all.
I'll go into the changes, and I will say eye test wise, I really couldn't see too many changes, but I think there are like just some slight changes which I'd like to go into a little bit more, and I'll actually start with Amorim because there's a bit more history there to watch with Amorim.
Let's start with roots.
So with Amorim, he I would say he does control through disruption and regaining initiative, right? So we kind of talked about in positional play. What he's really trying to do is he's looking at a defensive situation as an active process. So he doesn't want to absorb the pressure. He wants to force the other team to make a mistake, even if that means that's increased risk.
Yes, gegenpressing. Counter-pressing.
Yeah. When there are teams that are willing to concede possession, he usually defended with what looked like a high block.
Yeah.
Even if it's not like a full press.
Aggressive.
So like very high defensive line, more aggressive. Center backs are encouraged to step into those kind of like midfield zones overall. And that pressing intensity really increases with early pressure on ball receivers, things like that. So like really a high, more aggressive kind of pressing style overall.
I would say like a greater emphasis on like counter pressing to create turnovers, as opposed to having teams play inside the block to create turnovers, which is much more what Carrick is doing, I think.
Yeah. And if we look at the data while Amorim was in charge of United, you'd see a lot of variance in defensive metrics week over week. So like that kind of yo-yoing that you'd be like, oh, Amorim's really good, but like Amorim's really shit, right? Like there were increased shots conceded from transitions, more shots conceded inside the box against weaker teams.
Yeah.
Overall, and that's largely because
they can exploit space.
Yeah, they are exploiting space behind, and they're getting through.
And they have two of the slowest fucking center backs.
Yeah. But as we talk about it, and we're not fanboying after United, we're just saying that Amorim, I think, has raised United's defensive system overall. But also shrink that margin for error, especially in that midfield, recovering space in the midfield.
Well, I mean, my issue is, so like, when you're playing Bruno, who's typically like a attacking midfielder. He works kind of hard, Bruno. I think he's kind of underrated for how hard he works off the ball. But it's not his game, dude. Like, he's not a pivot player.
Yeah.
So, like, when you're having guys to try and, like, dig in and create, like, a block, Bruno is not the guy you want to partner Casemiro.
No, absolutely not. No, he wants to run up the field. He's not the one who's going to be relied on to do that work.
Agree completely.
He will do the work because he's asked to. But
doesn't it seem silly like that? The fact that Mainu wasn't playing, you've seen, like, a huge uptick in performance since Mainu is playing.
Yeah.
It just seems daft to me. Just fucking play Kobe Mainu.
Yeah. Not sure what was going on there. Maybe there was something else behind the scenes that we just didn't know as much about. But let's look at Carrick on the other side. So if we look at Carrick, I think I would describe his style of football as control through compactness and overall risk reduction.
Similar to his build-up approach. His chance creation approach.
Yeah, exactly. He wants something that's assured. He wants to limit the volatility. He wants to kind of control, where the priority is not really winning the ball quickly, but ensuring that they have the opportunity to defend if they need to defend.
What I would love to do, actually, and maybe we do this on a future episode, where we can look at PPDA between Ruben Amorim and Michael Carrick. Those stats are pretty hard to find, like historic stats. But if we could do it, I'd be interested to see like how they differ.
Yeah, we'd have to look at it like at a match level, and we can do an average off of that. I think we could maybe pull some data. I'll have to look at what my sources are on that data, and maybe we'll just do like a manual analysis on it.
If we find out, we'll let you know.
Yeah, definitely. So with this, overall, against stronger possession teams, so far has been comfortable in letting United defend for longer periods of time.
Think of that Arsenal game.
Exactly. Yeah, they were sitting back, as you described it, like they would pass the ball around the back, let Arsenal make a press, and then cut the ball through the middle if they needed to. It's a lower to mid to low block, back 3 to 4, stay very narrow and deep. The midfield is really a shield to protect from any additional pressing.
Which massively benefits Casemiro more.
Yeah.
Honestly, it does. He doesn't need to hunt the ball. He can essentially be used as a screen.
And you mentioned this also, very conservative triggers are only pressing when when someone has lost the ball or has made an error, or when someone is trying to pass the ball backwards and swipes it and then puts it right in the path of the striker.
For sure.
There are fewer defensive actions higher up on the pitch because they don't want to be exposed in the back. Overall, just limit that chaos and help control the match. And I think that's kind of what we've seen in the last 5 games since he's been in charge.
They seem a bit more assured.
Yeah.
A bit calmer.
Yeah.
I think they have some players that are better in situations like that anyway.
Yeah.
They don't have a bunch of pace in their team. And Buemo is quite quick. Šeško is quite quick.
Yeah.
They have pace up front, but they don't have pace retreating, especially now Dorgu was injured.
Yeah.
I think Dorgu is probably going to be quite a big miss for them. Majwawi or Delo are not particularly quick. None of their centre-backs are particularly quick. So if they're caught out, they're in danger. So I think he's identified that and an understanding of essentially creating, in American football, you call a shell.
Yeah.
Create like a shell to kind of dissuade offensive teams trying to play through the block.
Yeah.
If you choose to play through the block, we can try and turn it over once you've played inside the block, but we're not going to be too aggressive when it comes to pressing structures. And you can see that not only in the data, but like when you just watch them play.
Yeah. I think overall, what I kind of conclude from this analysis, and I'd love to hear what your conclusions are as well, is I am very glad that Amorim played the kind of defensive football that he played, and I'm kind of happy that Carrick is a bit more conservative and pragmatic in the kind of offensive football he plays.
I agree with that. I think, I don't know, from my perspective, I just want United to do terribly. So however that ends for them, I don't particularly care.
I would love Carrick to adopt Amorim's defensive style of football. That'd be fantastic. Just like they just play like in a line in the middle of the pitch.
I think Amorim plays more exciting football. But exciting versus effectiveness is something to be debated. And, for example, incredibly exciting to watch. But effectiveness is offensively good output, but it leaves you open on the back end, and that was definitely what was happening with Ruben Amorim.
I mean, he won a European trophy.
He did, mate. He did. That was a really great episode, at least from my perspective. I hope you guys feel the same way. Let us know if you like the analysis, kind of deep dive analysis into how specific teams set up. We're hoping to try and introduce these on kind of most previews that we choose that aren't Liverpool Arsenal focused. Let us know what you think. Aside from that, I think that's everything from us. Peace out.
Cheers, y'all.
See you guys.